Okay, Michael. So maybe first start by who you are, and then how you got into this UFO rabbit hole. How did that all take place?
Right on. Well, my name's Michael Lee Hill, and first and foremost, I'm a musician. Uh, Pretty serious one. You know, music has been my first love most of my life since I've been a small kid. Going down to Virginia, my uncles played country music, so at a very early age, I was having them show me old Hank Williams songs and started learning those, and have never quit. Music is still my greatest joy on this planet. But, you know, getting into the UFO thing and why it happened is, as we were talking about, I just moved to Florida, but up until recently, I was raised and lived very close to Lake Erie in the Cleveland, Ohio area. And I started seeing these orbs of light that are showing up worldwide, as you know, right now. And they were appearing over Lake Erie. And it got my attention, and I started going down around sunset and finding any parks that I knew I could go and hang out. And I would just go down and have my Sony Handycam waiting, you know, on a tripod. And if a big ball of light went by, I was ready to film it. Well, I started to accumulate quite a library of footage, and that ended up, some of it went viral. And if anyone wants to check out any of this footage, my YouTube channel is called Frozen Hill, and it's all one word, Frozen Hill. And as you'll see, my YouTube page is over 4.5 million views now. So that brought the History Channel to my door. And originally they were doing a show on Skywatchers, and they wanted, I'd have about a 5-minute segment, they told me. And so went and did the filming for that, and wasn't too long after I got a second notice, and they asked me if I'd be willing to elaborate on some of my story, and would I be willing to go to Boston. And I had no idea why they said that, but I was like, yeah, sure. And here they had interviewed another contactee. His name is Terrell Copeland, and he was a Marine, and he was going through a pretty thorough medical checkup because he was being deployed overseas, and they found an unknown blood anomaly in his blood, and none of the best military doctors could figure out what that is. We can get into that too, because what had happened, I didn't know, but when the History Channel went to interview Terrell Copeland, he was going to be part of the Skywatchers episode that for the series that became UFO Hunters. And when they went to interview him, he had filmed the same orbs of light I had. He had the same story of contact and the same spiritual message given to him, kind of like the law of attraction, you know, thoughts create reality, kind of bit of info. But they found out that he had an honorary discharge from the Marines because of this unknown blood anomaly. So it was the History Channel who thought, would it be interesting if these two guys ended up with the same blood anomaly, unknown, because here they both have filmed the same objects, have the same story. So that's what they were asking me to go to Boston for. And they're probably smart they didn't tell me, because I am the biggest baby when it comes to needles. But when I got to Boston, that's what I found out, is they were having our blood work and medical work done by a Harvard professor. His name was David Sistrom. And in that episode, it was revealed that sure enough, the professor found the same blood anomaly in my blood as Terrell's. And they pretty much didn't have anything to tell me. They said, yep, you have the same condition as well. We don't know what it is, and your plane's waiting for you. And I was like, wait a minute, man, this isn't a TV show anymore. What are you talking about? And they said, well, what do you think unknown means? We don't know what to tell you. There's usually, just so we can get this out of there, the anomaly they found in the blood was an increase of creatine kinase, or CK for short. And the brain in everybody releases CK. It's an enzyme. And creatine kinase brings in oxygen into the bloodstream to facilitate healing. So the normal levels of CK in the blood is 25 parts per liter. And if you've been damaged, had a heart attack, ripped a muscle, working out, or whatever, it can shoot up to about 250 to 300 tops. And that's because it's bringing more oxygen, which I found out later on down the line. The more oxygen in your blood equates to how much electrical capacity you're holding on a cellular level, chi or prana or life force, however you want to look at it. So if the normal levels were 25 parts per liter of blood, what they found in my blood was 2,100. So, and Troll's was almost identical to mine, being the levels being 2,100. But they couldn't find any medical reason whatsoever. He said if he had to make a guess, that he would guess that it was some kind of unknown virus that was tricking the brain into releasing massive amounts of creatine kinase. But, in that show, they got into my UFO footage that showed it, and they sent me on my way. And that episode aired in March of 2008. And so this led directly into, in the summer of 2008, is when I was first approached by these beings who announced themselves to me as the Anunnaki. They said, we've been known in your past as the Anunnaki. By the way, they said that's our word for them. That's not what they call themselves. They said we call their planet Nibiru, which is the planet of the crossing, but they call it the Saami, three-syllable. And then the people of the Saami are the Saamai, and the Saamai translated to Western English is Sam. So as I think you know, further down the timeline, we'll get into me being contacted by the NSA reverse engineering group. And those people, when you deal with them, if they're talking about the Anunnaki, they call them Sam. So that's the beginning of this, is me seeing these UFOs come up out of Lake Erie, go into Lake Erie, flying all around Lake Erie, the footage going viral, the UFO hunters, people getting in contact with me. And that led to actual meeting the Anunnaki. They said, we want to talk to you about this blood anomaly that was released on the History Channel because it's an indicator of our hybrid bloodline on this planet, which is known as the Nephilim in the Bible, which in the Bible it said that was the hybrid bloodline of the Elohim and the human here. Elohim is Anunnaki. So that leads us up to, meeting the Anunnaki. I guess, do you want to get more into the Lake Erie UFOs part of it before we get into...
Just a couple questions. You had the blood. Did they find anybody else down the road? So that's like 10 years. Was there anybody else that they found this blood anomaly in, or is it just you and Terrell?
No, not outside of when the NSA remote viewers brought me in. There was, I think, 220 some members in that group, and I was told that 12 members of the group had this bloodline, and that my levels of 2,100 would have put me in the middle of those 12 individuals, with the highest being 12,000. And I was told that the dude that had 12,000 was hit by a particle beam weapon and kind of got up and dusted himself off, kind of thing. I guess bodies can heal much faster with that much oxygen to facilitate healing. But that's the only time I've ran into people that were of the same bloodline. And specifically, they told me that's one of the reasons that I was brought into the fold, because of my bloodline, because they wanted to set up communication with the incoming, so to speak. They needed people of their hybrid bloodline, so on a DNA level there would be resonance, and we could communicate through remote viewing, or, I've heard it said it should be called remote viewing, it should be called remote sensing. But you can imagine, if you're going to be communicating with beings who communicate telepathically, it'd be important to, be able to know how to send your consciousness elsewhere. So
So you okay? So
Uh,
you have two groups of contact. You had NSA, and then you told me that you had a contact with Bigelow. Are those two connected, or can you go through those two sort of connections
I
and
would
what
have,
each was looking for?
yeah, I would have to think so because what had happened was, uh, so the timeline was in 2008, the UFO Hunters show aired. And by what's really interesting in this, by the way, is if you go back and watch that episode, it's called Alien Contact. Uh, that episode became a fan favorite, and it became the actual reason that that series was renewed for a second season because, Pat Uskert and Bill Burns kind of had a heated debate because Bill said, I know they're hybrids. I'm going to prove it. And he said in the show, I believe that you're being contacted by a secret part of the government and being given a course of study to help you process and how to handle you meeting your extraterrestrial or higher selves. That was on the show before any of it ever happened in real life.
Okay.
I don't think about that a lot. Go, who the hell's Bill Burns that he even knew that? And he told me some other things in my living room that at that time it made no sense to me whatsoever. Being who he is, he said, Michael, I'm really in an envious position of you and the role that you'll have in the future between them and us. I was like, what the hell is this dude even talking about? But sure enough, he knew what he was talking about because it's all come to pass. But so in 2008, I started working with them, and it was all about learning. They call it new life physics, and it's truly the best quantum physicists of this time who understand how light and sound create our physical reality, and the new physics behind it. A lot of quantum physics in it as well. But that all escalated to me being given a course of study, and I've begun releasing all this information too for free to everybody. I created a Facebook group called The Writings of A.R. Borden. He was the head of that group, and we became really dear friends. He became like a father figure to me because, as Bill Burns said, this was the group that was giving me information on how to process what I was experiencing. And so this all escalated to 2012, and a couple things had happened then, and through the being taught of these sending your consciousness elsewhere, we were taught, well, I'm going to have to back up. There was a 7-member team formed. There was 6 members of groups of 2. So I had a partner, another person had a partner, and another person had a partner. The 7th was A.R. Borden himself, the head of the NSA. These are the people that Philip Corso would have went to get this reverse engineered technology. So they had taught all of us how to recognize each other's energetic signatures on a non-physical platform, they said. And once they got a handshake, they called it, which, that they knew that it was legit. I can tell you how we learned each other's energetic signatures is we had to spend a lot of time getting to know each other. I spent a lot of hours on the phone with my partner, learning everything about him, looking through photographs of him. So we'd be familiar with his energy. And then we got to the point where we could recognize it even in a non-physical, like a deep state of meditation, and we would all meet somewhere. And then after that, the next phase with the NSA group was that then they seen if we had contact with the incoming and got a handshake there with, the extraterrestrial component. And what they said was happening and why we're doing this is all pieces of this information was pointing towards a doom and gloom ending to this human saga when Nibiru came through, because it said that it comes through every 3,600 years. And I think you know this, but in 2016, the reality of this planet was actually released to the public. All over the news, mass media, scientists revealed that they found Planet X, and they know it has to exist because of other anomalies in the other planets' orbits. And so go out and Google, Planet X found 2016. But it was asking them for help in this, to change it into a better timeline, because not only was Nibiru, the effects of it supposed to be happening, but I don't know if you're familiar with this topic called the galactic superwave, but it's this huge gamma ray that's released from this huge black hole. And now we know every galaxy has a black hole in the middle, but they say nothing can escape, but every once in a while, in the middle of galaxy, this massive explosion of energy is emitted from. And that wave has been traveling through our galaxy for a very long time. It just was said, that it would be here in December of 2012. So part of the protocol was, once they knew we were in contact with the incoming, that we had to give them some kind of, we had to give them our own solution. We couldn't just ask them to do it for us. We had to say, here's what we see as a problem. Here's what we think is a solution. The only solution that we had was, every time Nibiru comes through, it's not catastrophic. It would be in our geological record, and it's not. So they said, what makes the difference then between a survivable transit and a non-survivable transit? What they said was, it depends on where Nibiru comes through our solar system. And if it comes through Mars, between Mars and Jupiter, we got a fighting chance. But if it comes between Mars and Earth, there's nothing to buffer its effects. But by the way, through the same group, I was told Buzz Aldrin went on mass media, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. He told people that there was a monolith on the moon of Mars.
Yeah.
Said, wait till people find out that it's there, Well, he told me that the fact is that I think it's 7 planets in from the sun, on where, all people call them ley lines, where these ley lines cross, these monoliths are on all the planets, and it's Anunnaki technology, and that it helps in the stabilization of tectonic plates and electromagnetic fields around the planet. And in their own words, this system, the Buzz Aldrin system, we'll call it worked very well in the last 3,600 years when it came through. But they said pretty much, we asked for a change in trajectory, and it was very specific. I got all my tasking instructions. I'm totally willing to, because, by the way, the transhumanist agenda, once all this went down, they took A.R. Borden out of the picture. He came down with cancer, was dead within a month. And but before he died, he said, the time for secrecy is now over. And he encouraged us to release everything. So I took that to heart, and I have been. But what happened was, at the end of 2012, in that program, for about a month, every single day, I would contact my partner, and he lived in California, and we would, it was kind of going off that idea that when 2 or more come together with a common goal, your manifestation abilities go through the roof. So we had 6 people combining their intention, and A.R. Borden was what was called a waveguide. It's kind of like a microphone. We'll take this little teeny tiny signal and amp it up enough where it can be sent through a cable to a PA system or to a recorder or whatever. In the same way, he would take this little tiny amount of mental energy that the 6 of us was producing and amplify it and send it onto the incoming. Well, what they said this gets really deep, but from what I understand, they looked at us asking for a change in trajectory as the planet came into our solar system. It's kind of like, oh, look at the little children trying to take hold of the wheel, you know. Kind of thought it was funny. But obviously they have technology we can't even think of, and that this gets into everything that exists that has a life force in it. It takes the shape of the Merkaba, Star of David, double tetrahedron is the shape of the energy field around all living things. Well, people seem to be okay with it when they think of it being a person, but then you create a false Merkaba field, like in the Philadelphia experiment, and they rip that battleship out of the space-time continuum, and it popped back in 1988, as you recall. Well, the idea is the whole planet has a Merkaba field. So what if you ignite a whole planet's Merkaba field? What they told me was, once you're out of the space-time continuum, you're not in time. Like, it was in the ether, the Philadelphia experiment, for just a brief second, but it popped back in 1988. In the same way that they said, if they pop the whole Earth out of the space-time continuum in 2012 for 1/100th of a second, that to us, we wouldn't even know anything happened. It would be just like a blink of the eye, so they say. But in the ether, for that 1/100th of a second, it would have popped us back in 2036. And then we would snap back into a new timeline, a better one. And I'm sure you've heard about the Mandela effects and stuff as well. Heard from some very high sources, the work I did with the NSA is causing the Mandela effects. And I was actually told that I'm ripping in their own words, I'm ripping in timelines that are clashing with the mass consciousness because we're so far out of the mass consciousness's box. So they said I needed to start bringing more people through ceremony into this new creation so it would fine-tune it to not clashing so badly. So I guess I got to tell everyone I'm really sorry for screwing up their movies. But so that was the work I did with the NSA. And then the last time I talked to A.R. Borden, the head of this program, and really president of this planet, if the person that's actually reverse engineering technology and farming that technology out to the world, they're truly in charge. It's not Putin or definitely Trump or whatever. Yeah. It's, if an extraterrestrial is going to come, they're going to want to talk to a Tesla or, a new Tesla is what I'm saying. Someone that understands new life physics. That's who this group of people were. So the last thing he said our mission was successful, that humanity was given grace. And so many people think 2012 was such a non-event. They have no idea what kind of work was being done behind the scenes. But he said our mission was to...
well, quick question, just to clarify. So Borden is giving you these instructions. Are you going somewhere? And what about the other 6 people? Are they all sort of public like you are?
No, I've got them to come forward one time and do some interviews because AR's main wish was to form this group called the Linkage Institute. And it was an attempt to build a platform to release information in a very concise and detailed and responsible way. And so, as a matter of fact, I've taken up those reins as well and started the Linkage Institute on Facebook as well. But if you are ever interested in speaking with the other, I'm still in contact with 5 of the 6 individuals. This gets into some strange stuff, but they have, how Eisenhower met with 2 races of extraterrestrials. It's coming out now that one of them was the Anunnaki.
Okay.
And from what I was told, they said, we're not here to take over. We still have time, but you don't know what you're messing with nuclear energy, and we'll help you get to unlimited free energy, but you got to stop with the nuclear energy. And our government wasn't willing to do that at the time. And as the story goes, they said, "We know you're meeting with the Greys as well. We highly suggest you don't partner with them." Well, seems like that's exactly what happened. But so I asked AR Board, I said, "Well, what's it going to take to get another offer on the table?" Like, obviously they're right with Fukushima, and I think it's interesting too with the tie-in of them coming down and making missiles go into no-go all over the planet, at different military sites, and picking out nuclear missiles out of being tested in the air. It's like them over and over going, "You don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing." But I asked him, "What's it going to take to get another offer on the table from them to help us?" He said, "Well, what makes you think we didn't go into behind-the-scenes technology transfer programs, they call them PTPs, right then and there?" He said, "Where do you think LERM and LERM is light-encoded reality matrix, and it's manifesting something from nothing. It's the actual ability to visualization." How they came about this, by the way, is Tibetan monks. If you look into a subject called Tulpas, Tulpa, Tibetan monks will meditate on the revered thought form of a deceased monk, and sooner or later that monk will appear in the physical with a full functioning consciousness. And it's not like it's illusionary, it's others can see it and perceive it as well. Well, the NSA thought, well, why don't we make it into a science? If one person can do it, anyone can do it. So that was the beginning of this light-encoded reality matrix. Another one was ENS, which is electrical neural sensing, which, if you can even imagine this, Anunnaki-assisted remote viewing. And for most remote viewing, for most even extraterrestrial cultures, you're in observer mode. You don't get to go back and change anything because the effects on other timeline ripples is so magnificent that it's so hard to be able to go back in time and change something and know that it won't affect everything horribly. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So he said, "Where do you think this stuff came from?" We've been working with the Anunnaki in these reverse engineering programs since the 1950s. And he said the group that actually does the work is called the ACIO, and that is the Alien Contact Interface Organization of the NSA. But then there's a more secretive faction of the ACIO, just like you got Lockheed Martin and you got Skunk Works,
Yeah.
But for the ACIO, the most secretive division is called the Labyrinth Group, and that's where there's actual extraterrestrials on the ground, feet on the surface in underground bases, working on extra, technology transfer programs here. So he said we've been working with the Anunnaki since the 50s anyhow, and in the Labyrinth Group, there's a council of 12 of the Anunnaki. Well, most of them are Anunnaki. I found out at the end that all of them are not Anunnaki. But that's called the Labyrinth Group. So getting back to what work was done, this was really fascinating because he said, our mission was successful, but we pissed off the wrong people. The people behind the Georgia Guidestones, it's written in stone right there, keeps humanity under 500 million. That's a hell of a genocide, Yeah. And that they wanted these earth changes to happen in 2012. And we threw a giant monkey wrench into their works. And, for instance, if you remember, there was Hurricane Sandy coming into New York.
Yep.
And the team was given, and I have these tasking instructions. I could get them to you. It's not like I couldn't make this shit up if I tried. Excuse my language. But they said, listen, we know that you are not weathermen, but we're going to give you an ebook and tasking instructions that have the most accurate, up-to-date weather conditions on this Hurricane Sandy from our satellites, all the best sources. All we need for you to do is lay your eyes on it. That they will be looking through your eyes. They will know what to do with the data. You don't know. You don't have to know what to do with the data. All we need you to do is just read every word, put your eyes on the data, and as we were doing that mission, people don't even recall this because we stopped it, but there was an earthquake on the left side of the United States, and it created, it was called Earthquake Charlotte. It was Hurricane Sandy on the right side, and Earthquake Charlotte on the left side that created a tsunami coming into Hawaii. And, tsunami buoys don't lie. There's a 20-foot wall of water heading for Hawaii. They knew they had time. It was like 4 hours until it reached Hawaii. So they got everyone live on the news to go to higher ground, and they awaited this 20-foot wall of water to hit Hawaii. Well, I used the exact same group and methods to bring in a different timeline. And as you know, both storms or earth events had all the energy taken out of them. It happened again in Florida, by the way. And big part of why I'm here, too, is what's here. But if you recall, no one's even asking, but me and the team members got a lot of people together to implement the same thing we did in 2012 with Hurricane Sandy. As the hurricane came into Florida, all of a sudden, the oceans receded. Like, the ocean disappeared. It just went out to sea. And then everyone was scared. They're like, well, it's going to come back and it's going to flood everything. It never came back. And if there's no water, it reduced the severity of the hurricane, like, instantly. And it could have been so much worse. But I think these are really good lessons going into the future to know that we have the ability to change weather. We can be weather composers ourselves, and